Present are all members of the council, less the mayor. Also, Dave Street, Roy Jambrin, Chris Godwin, Sandra Varga, can't even read my writing, Lieutenant Franco, and Eric Belay, and Star Lockwood. All right. If you'll join me, we'll state the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sandra, do we have any citizen comments? Okay. At this time, do any of our citizens have any comments to address to the council? Any council members? Okay, great. Then we will move on to items of community interest, in which we can express expressions of thanks, gratitude, and condolences, information regarding holiday schedules, recognition of individuals, reminders to city council, reminders regarding community events, and health and safety announcements. Do any of our members have any announcements for that? I like the way this is going.
Moving along.
Moving along. All right, great. We'll move on to item number 1 in the public hearings. And Dottie, do I open the public hearing before I read it or when I finish it?
Read the agenda item and then you.
Okay. The Lago Vista City Council will hold a public hearing and discuss a potential future ordinance for a zoning district change from TR-1 temporary restricted zoning designation resulting from a voluntary annexation to C2 commercial large scale for a proposed retail center on 5.0281 acre tract at the location commonly referred to as 4712 Loman 4 Road. That I will open the public hearing at 6:32 p.m. Do we have any discussion from the council on this?
So after you open the public hearing, you usually ask the staff to submit its presentations for the record.
Do we have a staff presentation?
Yeah, as you guys are probably aware, this is the piece of property that's been on your agenda several times in recent months for annexation. In fact, the final leg of that annexation will be later on your agenda to adopt the changes of the official map. They are, as expected, preparing for the zoning, and they're well into the design stage. One of the things I put in your packet, which I'm kind of proud of, is an excellent example of what tree preservation is supposed to look like. But that's a little drawing in your packet. Showing that they, in fact, did what our ordinance asked us to do. Maybe the best example we'll have in the entire community of what a commercial site's supposed to look like with the ordinances that we have.
Roy?
Yes, sir.
Did we receive any letters from citizens in the notification zone?
I'm sorry?
Did we receive any notifications from citizens in the notification
I don't believe
zone?
we got a single response of any sort, actually. Not that I recall. They are in the packet, but I don't remember. If there are any, they are in your packet.
Okay. And did this one go through P&Z by any chance?
Yes, it
sir.
did.
It did. The only reason we're going through the 2 process, and this is kind of the recommended method that we'd like you to do, with the idea that you're going to discuss it on one meeting, is open the public hearing and then continue it to the next meeting in case someone shows up to speak on the same evening that you vote on it.
So your recommendation is to leave the public hearing open?
Continue it, leave it open, whatever language Dottie prefers you to use. I've heard it both ways.
Roy, I've got a quick question.
Sure.
On that parcel, as it comes to the intersection there at Loman and Boggy, it cuts off at a blunt, but there's a small piece of it that's there?
Yeah, it's just the way they did the right-of-way. And they, some people square off the right-of-way and just, have the radius, square off the property lines and leave the radius inside the right-of-way. Other people radius the property lines or do angles and things like that.
So that little parcel there is part of the right-of-way and it will remain there at the front of that property? Okay.
You're talking about this little piece right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where that sign.
Right.
Is.
Yeah.
Just depends on the city engineer, when they're doing the right-of-way acquisition and what his preference is.
Okay.
I've seen it all kinds of ways.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council?
I'm good.
Any questions from our audience?
So at this point, you would ask the audience if there's anyone that wants to come up and speak during the
Okay.
public hearing.
Is there anyone who wants to come up and speak during the public hearing?
Hello, I'm Jenny Brosh, and do I need to give you my address? 10800 Pecan Park, Austin, 78750. I represent the landowner who is here. The buyer who has submitted the site plan had hoped to be here, but he had a family kind of an emergency, and so he's not here with us tonight. But we can answer all the questions for him. As was so aptly described, we voluntarily annexed. We have done final plat, and the plat has just been recorded. And now we're moving forward, asking for the zoning for this tract. The zoning that we're asking for is what your comprehensive plan outlined, that the city had the expectations for this to be what would happen on this corner, and that's what we're asking for. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask of me? Okay. Would you like to speak to the actual landowner? If you're good, okay.
The
Thank you.
actual landowner.
Actual
Actual landowner.
I'm not an actual person.
I just bought this property the other day, 28
Can
years
you,
ago.
for the record, can you give your name and address,
My name is
please?
Bill Pohl,
Thanks, Bill.
BOHL. See, where do I live? 2702 Brubeck, Cedar Park, Texas. And we bought this property some significant, so we're not flipping it or anything like that. We bought it with the expectation that at some point, we invested in Lago Vista, that it would grow, and at some point, it would grow into this use. It's always been anticipated to be this use, and it hasn't changed. And it's time for us to buy something else in Lago Vista and work on it, which is our plan from the money that we get from this, should it close. Any questions? Oh, one last thing. I'm not Jennifer. My daughter, who really is running this thing, delighted me with a grandbaby 15 days ago.
Congratulations.
The jet has landed. That's his name, Jet. So she wants to say hello to all you guys and whatever. And in the future, she'll be here. I'm just standing in for her. Thank you.
Any further discussion from the council? With that, we'll go ahead and leave the public hearing open until our next meeting, and we'll move on to item number 2.
Hang on.
I'm sorry.
I do have one question.
I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the ordinance language. Is that the right one? No, never mind. I'm on the wrong one.
Yeah, I was gonna say the ordinance isn't there yet.
We're preparing them and changing the numbers every meeting, and we just said, well, if we're not gonna vote on it.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, item number 2, the Lago Vista City Council will hold a public hearing and discuss potential future ordinance for a zoning district change request to amend an existing planned development district, PDD, specifically as it relates to the development of Lot 2 within the Hollow Phase 2D Block D subdivision. Roy, do you have something for us on that?
This is a specific lot. and-
I'm sorry, we open it at 6:30, or 6:38. Sorry.
This is a fairly large lot near the entry to the hollows. The original PDD left it somewhat vague. In fact, the description was it'll either be commercial or residential. You know, that kind of covers the gamut. And we'll let you know later what we decide. That it's not, you know, they said that if it was going to be residential, that it would be noted on the final plat, and it wasn't. So it's not quite that vague. You can assume, therefore, that it's commercial. What kind of dictated the change in front of you is that although your ordinance allows modular construction, so long as it meets all the material requirements that you guys are aware of, and it sits on a permanent foundation, there's a specific provision in your ordinance that says a real estate sales office can only be in place for a period of a year. That's modular construction and must be replaced by a model home at the end of that year. These guys were investing in something that I think is beyond what your ordinance originally contemplated. I assume that they, had in mind more like what I would call a job shack, that type of modular construction. And the idea is you didn't want that sitting on a piece of property for more than a year. As you can see from your packet, this is quite a bit more than that.
It's $1 million building.
Right, but regardless, I mean, the ordinance says what it says, and the proper avenue for them to find relief from that provision to have a sales office that's modular construction for more than a year would have been to put that in the PDD as part of those regulations. So that's what they're doing in front of you, is modifying the PDD as it relates to this lot to allow for that particular construction to stay there for more than a year. Now, here's the strange thing. If some point after that year that they intend for it to be there quite a bit longer than that, if they convert the use to some other commercial use, then that would have been a by right use anywhere in Lago Vista under the current ordinance, although it's very likely that the building committee will discuss that in the very near future. But that's the way it exists right now. This same building could go on this lot as long as it was in a real estate sales office, it would be allowed without any further complications. But because it's that's why they're here, and that's why they're amending their PDD. Just so you'll know, this is not the only amendment that you can expect. These guys will be in front of you with quite a bit more. But the idea is they needed to get this building in place fairly quickly, and so they amended just this portion to deal with this one issue now with more to come in the near future.
Are we going to get a master plan sometime in the future for all this so we don't have to
Yes,
do
sir.
it piecemeal?
Yeah, and this one always was. I mean, it was piecemeal in the original, as I told you. It was not even, it was designated as, to be determined, if you will, under the original PDD. So it didn't bother us that much that we were dealing with it in a similar fashion. But yeah, I think the idea is that, the actual residential development portion, you always like to see, even when they're just amending a piece of it, you always like to see it in context, with what's already there and what it looks like, is one big whole. So I would hope that they're going to show that when they deal with the other amendments. But they're here. I think that they can probably answer that question for you better than I can.
So this particular issue is only talking about the sales office. It's not talking about all the other buildings.
Yeah, but you see that concept development plan?
That's what I'm looking at.
As you have heard from me before, whether it's amended 5 or 6 more times, we want something fairly specific in there for PDD. This vague notion of to be determined and no drawings whatsoever and just a narrative, in my opinion, that's questionable to be used as a PDD. It's not specific enough. If they came to the staff with construction documents, we wouldn't know what to do with it. Does this comply or not? So with that development plan was something we asked for. They showed us what their intent as of today, but that doesn't preclude them from amending again.
It looks like there's another commercial building there, the POA office. Is that something that they could build in a modular fashion because it's not a sales?
Well, and they may flip that out with this building. They become the POA has come up and they build a different commercial building for the rest of the site. And once again, like I said, it is, when you get as specific as I like them to be, it's normal for them to come up to you with minor amendments. Now, once again, these are not intended to be construction documents, but when we evaluate whether they need to come back to you with an amendment from something they showed, the real litmus test is, does it raise new issues of public interest? If it's a change that doesn't mean anything, we don't bring those back. It's whether there's something that the public would want to comment on, before you make your decision as to whether it's a substantive change is the word I like to use.
And right now, is that all just raw land?
Yes.
Okay.
You stockpiling anything there yet? I don't think so. it's hard to see from the highway. You gotta go
Right.
down in there to see it.
And this is only intended for its initial use.
Right, but I think and once again, they have, what they're showing you on the concept plan is a potential mixed-use site. A mixture of residential and, business occupancies and those kind of compatible commercial uses. Nothing too intense, I think, would go there. And once again, I think one of the problems is it's not highly visible from the highway. I'm not so sure an intense commercial use would even be interesting.
This doesn't
And the only
require
thing you're asking
changing,
for right now is this.
this
building,
doesn't
right?
require changing the development agreement, does it?
No. Like I said, in a lot of ways, it's simply an embellishment of what you were told before.
Okay.
What you were told before was commercial and nothing else, in essence.
This has gone in front of P and Z, and, they discussed the foundation, and, the builder decided that building was going to be there for at least 5 years before they decided whether it's going to be the POA office or a recreational area. But I don't think they're going to take that building out once they get it laid out on the it's going to be there,
So its use is going to change.
The use is going to
But
change.
the building will still remain.
But right now, they want to use it as a sales office to try to get all these other pieces of property sold, and it's an attractive building, and I think it would attract other people to come and check out the area and see if they want to build in it. And
Will it be visible from Destination Way?
Yes, sir. If this might
Yes.
come up, I'd be happy to give a little quick presentation. Okay, thanks. I'll do the same as I did from planning commission. Hopefully don't bore you to tears. This is.
Can you start with your name and your address for us, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Paul Shepard. I reside at 11400 West Palmer Lane in Cedar Park. I'm the development director for the Hollows. Ironically, I was here 15 years ago when they first started the Hollows, so I was probably in front of some of you people maybe at that point, but anyway, got a few more gray hair. But this, here's 1431 in the sales office site.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
could we ask that you grab the microphone so our people at home can hear you?
Oh, yeah. Not very good.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, is that better? Okay.
Thank you.
So the site resides here, like you said in your packet. So we realize there's a lot of land already built and future in the Hollows. And we look at this as one big community. So when we came in, we wouldn't really be here yet. We were waiting to come in and address you when we have the rest of the land in Lago Vista master plan with a site. And this may or may not require PD amendments, but at least let you know what our business plan and residential models for layout will be. But we had to jump in early to see you because, as Roy pointed out, we wanted to do a temporary sales office. Well, the code doesn't allow it. And also to clean up the zoning, underlying zoning today, because it is kind of vague with maybe residential, maybe commercial or whatever. So we said no problem. We'd be happy to do that. So that's the application in front of you. What we also wanted to show you was like a before and possibly after. This site right now shows just a sales office, which is very nicely done in a modular fashion. We also have site plan for a, like the community post office, if you will, where you get your mail. Also, we have planned in the site plan a future POA office where they might want to build their own little office or join into our building. We just don't know until we get there. And then we showed a future plan, which is probably like cartoon-looking plan that's in the back of your packet that shows maybe how we do a little cluster, a little village concept with some residential surrounding the community center. Because we look at this as more of a community center. Yes, it's sales because we have to sell this product, but also someday it might turn into a community center with POA and mail, and there'll be like maybe a place to grab your coffee and grab your paper and on the way to work or coming home, because it's so centralized to everybody, even North Shore. So that was the gist behind locating it there. And we, like Roy said, we just had to come in a little early before we're ready to show you our grand plan for the Lago Vista area piece. Just because we had to clean up the ordinance, or else but we have to get out there and start selling, and then as we get more planning done, Whether it requires a PDD amendment, who knows? I think it's going to fit within the existing zoning, but we can at least show you, go from bubble plan to more of a master plan area. I hope that helps.
So, Paul, this particular building, the sales office you want to build, it's going to be the sales office for the entire Hollows development?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It wasn't clear in the packet, but it makes a lot more sense now. It seemed like that was overkill for that one little section that we saw in the concept.
Right. And,
Okay.
and just, I think I relayed this, it's not an easy building. We kind of bit off more than we could chew with this thing because it's so intense and detailed. We're probably going to leave it there, but, you know, once you get something like that planted, it's not an easy feat to move. But but we just wanted to have that option in case we do need to relocate it to another project. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion from the council?
David, did P&Z review it and recommend it?
Yes,
Was it
yes,
unanimous?
yes,
Okay.
yes, and Roy was there also.
Yeah, your packet was prepared before they met, so
Okay,
yes, it was unanimous.
okay.
Anyone else in the audience or have questions or want to address the council? Okay. With that, we're going to leave this public hearing open as well, since it's the first public hearing on this. And we'll move on to item number 3. A discussion and action regarding ordinance number 18-01-02-01, an ordinance ordering and establishing procedures for the 2018 general election in the city of Lago Vista to elect council members place 2, 4, and 6, providing for notice of the election, providing election precinct and polling places, providing for early voting, providing for an effective date and an open meetings clause, and providing for related matters.
Mayor, this ordinance is exactly everything that you just read. It'll help us get the process rolling so that we can have an election this year. I can't really say anything else except for we have the 3 places. It establishes again, everything you just read.
All right.
We typically wouldn't hear this one twice because it's part of the procedure that we would establish our election date for November 6th.
Appears to be written exactly as it was last year, with a different
Maybe
date.
the exact same words.
Any questions or discussion from the council? Okay. Questions or comments from the audience? I can entertain a motion at this time.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 18-08-02-01.
I'll second it.
The motion has been seconded. This time we'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay. And the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to action item number 4, a discussion and consideration of ordinance number 18-08-02-02, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, adopting the most recent official city maps of the incorporated municipal boundaries or city limits and extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City Council, the City of Lago Vista, requiring that a copy of the map be filed in the office of the city secretary and the office of the city engineer, providing a savings clause, severability clause, effective date, open meetings clause, and providing for related matters.
Mayor, this item, Roy addressed it earlier, but it's a follow-up to any annexations that we have. What this does is effectively change our municipal boundaries and our limits so that heretofore we will have the areas that we've annexed included in our map. A lot of times you complete the annexation, but we don't officially update a map, so these items are presented for you so that you can update our official city map.
The map that we have in our packet does not show that new parcel within the city limits.
Yes, it does, and I blew it up so you could see it. It's so small, the little map, but yeah. It shows it contiguous. So.
Oh, right, but it doesn't show it within the boundaries. Shouldn't the new official map show that parcel within the boundary?
Oh, it does.
Okay. Am I missing something?
Lines are so funny in that area.
That's what,
It'll confuse you. You know, there's, the ETJ goes in and out all over the place.
But I can see the parcel.
I
So
think the
you told-
lines are the ETJ, and so because there's no lines, it then becomes included within the city.
Oh.
Backwards from what you think, because it's so strange around there. And Josh asked me a question about peace the other day, I got it backwards for exactly the same reason.
So on the official map that you put in the office, it will show it exactly how it
It's
is?
contiguous with the rest of the city.
Okay.
And sometimes when you're at the edge, the boundary of the ETJ might move out in accordance with state statute. But since this was already surrounded by city on all four sides, I don't think that happened in this case.
Okay.
Are there
I
questions?
stand down.
It's like a donut hole.
That's why I blew it up.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the council? Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion, we adopt ordinance number 18-08-02-02.
And I second it.
The motion has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And it carries unanimously. Moving on to action, or item number 4, discussion and action regarding ordinance number 18-08-02-03, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, amending Annex A, fee schedule article 10.000, Parks and Recreation fees to modify 10.200, golf course fees, providing a savings clause, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date.
Mayor, this item is directly related with the golf course fees. We have presented this to the council before. As your staff summary shows, it was presented on June 21st. The Golf Course Advisory Committee did meet last night and discussed the meeting. I was not there, but Councilor Weatherly was there and Chris was there to provide any kind of updates that they may have. We did make the change that Councilor Sullivan requested to the 6-month membership fee. Other than that, I don't think we had any other changes at this time.
Madam Mayor, the Golf Course Advisory Committee did review these fees, and it was unanimously accepted. And their recommendation is that they be accepted.
Now, will these fees result in increased revenue, decreased revenue, or is it revenue neutral?
Mayor, as previously discussed, this would basically be a revenue neutral change that would just simply change the breakdown of how individuals are charged for the different services. But as requested, we made sure that the rates were the same fee structure that we previously had.
So the expectation is revenue neutral.
Revenue neutral with this change.
Chris did bring it to our attention last night that with the new rates, there's like a 2-cent difference from what was previously the rate.
So is that positive or negative?
Negative.
It's
a penny on the underside of both fees.
Both fees. And it was felt that this was a more appropriate pricing for marketing.
Just really wanted to go for that 99 cent.
99 cents has been shown to be a more effective
Yes.
pricing with marketing and with looking at courses in the area. It is something that they very frequently use at the other courses. So it was felt that this would put us more in line with the other courses, give us the same marketing advantage as those courses.
Wasn't one of the items that was split out so it could be offered individually the use of the range, which is a different thing than we've had before?
Yes.
So people can buy an annual membership just strictly for the driving range and just go out there and just use that?
Mayor, that's correct. That adds a new opportunity for people so that basically that practice portion is provided and the annual membership has some value so that people like myself can go out there and swing more often and not have to worry about paying every time you go.
There was that one question I sent an email about the snowbird, Canadian, whatever we want to call it. Was the duration of theirs longer than a month?
Mayor, so this creates a very interesting point. We have it in here as a snowbird fee, and we were discussing this again today. It stays a month. if you do the math on a monthly plus a monthly cart, then the snowbird fee is going to be about $55 greater than what a normal monthly fee would be.
Right.
The understanding with this update is that the monthly option is not just a monthly option, it's a monthly payment option for an annual membership.
Yeah.
So the commitment, when you go in there and say, I'm going to do a membership, but I'm going to pay monthly, is that you're going to pay 12 consecutive months. The snowbird option is for the 1 month.
Got it.
And so in theory, we could even amend this section, which would be section 8, instead of saying snowbird fee, that could be a non-committal monthly rate. If we wanted to do that, and if we want to allow individuals to do that. The difference is that number is $275, whereas the other would be $220.
Yeah.
So if you're committed for 12 months but paying monthly, it's $220 a month instead of $275. So I think that's a good point that we want to draw attention to. The way we're establishing is that there's not really a monthly rate. If you wanted to do monthly and not be committed, you're basically paying
The snowbird.
pay to play, or you're getting the snowbird fee.
Got it.
Because we don't designate when the snowbird fee, what it is, we don't designate a specific date.
Right.
So it's a monthly use of the course.
Non-committal monthly use.
You could call it the winter monthly or something like that, because snowbirds, people from Canada and Minnesota, and they come from November to
March.
Well, we
to
don't,
March.
we
So
wouldn't necessarily want to turn away potentially people who rent for the summer out here who would want to have a monthly commitment either, right? I mean, to me, that the idea is to create more opportunities for
Correct.
people to enjoy the golf courses. So I tend to like that it would be available at any time of year, or potentially if somebody wasn't sure they wanted to make a year-long commitment, but they wanted to learn how to play golf,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Why not?
yeah.
Mayor, I think that's the best. For us to make this commitment, and it goes back to what Councilor Smith's asking, this effectively would commit more people to long-term membership. So it could be a revenue positive plan if
Right.
it works the way it should. But if we simply change that to, again, monthly, non-committal rate, sounds kind of crazy. There's got to be something more creative, but
Or
if we change that-
non-membership monthly.
There
something
you go.
like-
Yeah.
That might be.
But you
the
might
wording.
want to do that simply because if the people read Snowbird, they're going to think, oh, I can only do that during the winter.
And that's
Well,
why
you
I say we would need to make the change on that one based on that. And then I believe the original question, Mayor, came from Rhonda Schmitz asking, why would that number be higher? And that was sent to us. And we want to be able to explain that to people, that that's the non-membership rate, so that, as you said, someone comes out for June and July, they just pay for 2 months. They have that opportunity to play.
Well, the only thing, I don't want to delay us on another meeting for this, but for future consideration, I would provide the feedback that if we're going to look at it in those terms, that we look at a junior fee for that monthly non-committal rate as well. It certainly might encourage more young golfers, parents to make an investment, because I've had young children and they don't necessarily stick with things. And so sometimes you don't want to make a commitment for a year, but making a month by month commitment until they figure out, right?
And since we have that section now, since we've split it all up, it could fall right underneath that junior
Yeah.
fee. So now you've got the summer
Yeah.
basic rate for the juniors. But just the same, you may have someone that comes out of a season that may not be playing football or volleyball. They decide they want to play golf. They could play for a month. And we can bring that back to council. We'll have to look at the number.
Yeah.
But we want to make it something. You'll notice down here that we offer kids up to 18 after 3 get a free play.
Okay.
But we want to make that option so that we're driving kids to be able to play. So
Okay.
we'll bring that back to council.
Can we approve this tonight?
Yeah,
And also give you the latitude to change the nomenclature if you decide you want to?
On
The
which one?
snowbird versus,
Yes.
non-member monthly?
Non-member
Yeah, and we could
monthly.
do it with that wording.
Okay.
We could just say that it'd be non-member monthly rate, and we would just change that section where it now says snowbird fee to that non-member,
Right.
non-member monthly rate.
And could we also give the latitude to supplement it with that junior fee for the non-member monthly rate?
You can. It's up to you if you want it without.
It's a lot of conditions on the motion, but I don't want to delay. We've brought this to council, 3 times now?
Yes,
So-
ma'am.
No,
Seems like. Any further discussion or questions from the council? Do I have any discussions from the audience or questions? Okay. Then I'll
I will make a motion that we approve ordinance number 18-08-02-03, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, amending Appendix A fee schedule, Articles 10.000 Parks and Recreation fees to modify 10.200 golf course fees, providing a savings clause, providing a servability clause, and providing an effective date, with the modification that we change Snowbird to a non-member monthly, and that we establish a junior non-member monthly fee. Do we have to set the amount of that? Or can we give
Maybe just
the
in
city
line.
manager the leeway to establish that fee?
Yes, and in your motion, I would say non-member monthly fee, so it's consistent because you're saying fee all the time.
Okay.
And then add to allow the city manager to set the junior non-member monthly fee to a rate consistent with the junior fees. In the,
I make a second.
I've got a quick question. If you look on electronic page 87, the start of the ordinance says 18-07-19-01
On the ordinance?
on the ordinance language.
And on the agenda, it says 18-08-02-03.
Mayor, it'll actually be what you just read. What happens is, the reason we've changed the way we format, if you remember when we first presented this, 3 meetings back, we come up with the one ordinance number. So the actual ordinance number will be as you've approved it tonight, in line. So when you approve these items, even if we have one ordinance number on here, it's approved with when you approve it on the agenda.
Okay.
In theory, if you would have moved items around on the agenda and put this one first before the others, we would have changed it in order of when you approve it. Just know how we handle it.
So what you're saying is when this thing is officially printed and signed, it's going to say 18-08-02-03 or whatever?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. All right, motion passes unanimously. Item number 6, a discussion and possible action regarding resolution number 18-1763, resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Travis County, Texas, on behalf of Tessera on the Lake Travis Public Improvement District for the collection of public improvement district assessments.
Mayor, this item we had on the last agenda. It's a follow-up to when John Snyder was here before talking about the Tessera at Lake Travis PID assessments. One of the things that we've talked about previously and this council has actually interacted with is the fact that the assessments for that subdivision were all done independently and not through an escrow account. That created a challenge for a lot of people. What it can actually do is create a challenge for collections. It hadn't really created a challenge for us because John's been in charge with getting all the collections, and so we've collected all the money. So it's happened. It's fantastic. But one of the things we talked about was being able to add this to the Travis County collections and putting that on the individual assessments for property owners. Star and John have talked about some of these items, and we've gone back and forth about questions, how the collections will happen, how the reporting will come back. At one point, we had some questions about reporting so that the dollars are clearly marked when they come back into our funds. We didn't want this to get tied up with the ad valorem taxes. One of the concerns is if they're just making random deposits, we like it when the county sends us money, but we still need to know what it is. So that was one of the questions that was cleared up is how will dollars come in, how will they be allocated and designated.
Where you post them.
Exactly. Make sure they're posted in the right place so we can still track it. John is here tonight. He can answer any questions that we may have about the process, what's happened before, what's going to happen in the future. That's pretty much all I know at this point.
I have a question for you. Because this previously was handled by Tessera, do we foresee that creating any additional work for our staff members within the city?
So Mayor, what it'll actually do is it'll be less work for us.
Okay.
Because what happened before is there's a team that was collecting it. We didn't really have to worry about it. It just came in. It'll be the same thing here. So there will be some transitional frustration, I'm going to guess, for Star. But other than Star having some pains, everybody else should be unaffected.
Well, we worry about Star
I
having
got
pains
you.
too.
So other than her pain, the rest of us, Sandra's going to be good. I'm going to be good. Lieutenant's going to be happy. Just Star may have some, but it's transitional. That my point being, we shouldn't have to do more work. It's just the way that the deposits are coming in, as Councilor Smith said. We just have to know where they're headed.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for John.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
John, have you talked with the residents out in Tessera? Is this something that they feel would be beneficial to them? Is this something that they're for?
So I've talked to the residents that have called me.
John, I'm so sorry. Can
yes.
you tell your name and
Sure.
your address, please?
Yeah, John Snyder with P3 Works, 3901 South Lamar Boulevard, Austin, Texas. So the residents that I've talked to have been the folks that have called me, having questions about the bill and that sort of thing. And when I was talking to them, there was a little bit of frustration. And most of it came from one class of residents, and that's, we get our data from the appraisal district, and it usually runs anywhere from maybe 6 to 8 weeks behind. And so when we're doing for instance, we did the SAP update in July this year, which means our data was probably from April or May, and they're out there selling houses. And so we're sending out the bills based on who owned the property when we had the best information. And so you've got a period where the bills are going to the home builders, but they had, since then, they'd already built a house, transferred it, and so either the folks were delayed in getting the bill or the home builder never got on the bill, and so that's where a lot of the confusion was coming in. And I think there's PIDs all over the state now. I'd guess there's probably north of well over 50. I don't know that it's to 100 yet. There's quite a few. And I think the city of Lago Vista and the city of Irving are the only ones that don't go and put them on the tax roll. I can't tell you the ones that we do have on the tax roll. The collections, we don't have a single outstanding assessment for any of the districts we manage. So the assessments were due January 31st. Every single property owner has paid at this point. So the collection process works pretty well. We've talked to the county, and I'm hoping we make this painless on Star. So the money, I think how we're looking at setting it up is actually we'll send them 3 separate assessment rolls, and they'll actually wire the money directly to the city's trustee. And so it never even has to come in, and hopefully it even makes Star's life a little bit easier to where we get the reports, and the trustee will have the money for each, and it'll go into the account automatically.
And if I'm understanding this correctly, what this will do for most of the homeowners that have a loan, this will simply be put into their escrow with their monthly payments.
So you could always get it escrowed. This makes it a lot easier because most folks do escrow their property taxes. And now that it's a line item on the bill, it'll get picked up a lot easier by the mortgage company. Right now, the mortgage companies, they're learning to look for PID assessments as they become more common, but most of them, like I said, are on the tax roll. So if they look at the tax bill, and if it doesn't say Lago Vista PID number, or whatever it's going to end up saying, they'll miss it, right? They don't know to call us. And so it should pick it up and make it much easier, especially in the early years, right? Once they missed it once and then the homeowner requested it be put on, then every year after that it'll be okay. But this keeps, we have had a couple of situations where it was missed and then the homeowner was effectively having to make it up over a 12-month period, whatever they agreed to with the mortgage company, where they had to effectively pay double for that 12-month period to get caught up.
If this were to pass tonight, what is the communication plan for notifying the neighbors? And there's a specific reason I'm asking is that often when the county makes changes to tax bills, there is an impression that the taxes have been raised within our city, which we have not done in, I know you know, up to 5 years. I know you knew off the top of your head. So I just want to ensure that we have a good plan in place to let the residents know exactly what's going on in as plain language as possible.
I'll be honest, I hadn't planned on sending out any notice to that regard, but I know that the HOA is fairly active out there, and I could reach out to Darlene Luke at Hines and ask her to put me in contact with the HOA so they can send an email blast. That's probably the most efficient way to do it, to let people know that it's not coming from us this year. It'll be actually a line item on the tax bill, and that it's nothing additional than what they would have gotten otherwise. So we can definitely do that.
I would appreciate that, because making sure that the citizens are informed is really paramount, especially when it comes to tax bills.
And how will the county be notified of who owes what? I'm assuming there are some homeowners out there that have paid theirs off in full and shouldn't be billed anything. Will that be clearly communicated to the county, who should and who should not?
Yes, sir. So that's the SAP update that y'all approved in July. At the back of that, there's an assessment roll, and that lists out every property, and we take into consideration if people paid in full, some folks prepaid a little bit, right? They paid an extra $1,000, so it takes all that into consideration. And then all the county gets from us is just a very simple spreadsheet that it'll just show the property ID number and the amount owed. So
Okay.
if they don't know anything beyond that, it's just, here's what it is, here's the property, and here's how much needs to be collected.
Got it.
Is there any fees charged by the county for this service?
They do. They charge a one-time fee of $1,000 to set it up and for drafting the contract and whatever else they need to do. And then after that, they charge the same fee that they charge the city for collecting property taxes. So I'm not sure what Travis County's is. Usually, it's about the price of the stamp. It's not too much on a per parcel basis.
So they send you the invoice and you invoice us, or does it come
They actually
separate?
take it out of the collections. So when they collect the money, they'll just pay themselves out of the collections.
Other questions?
Um,
Okay. Do you have anybody in the audience who has questions or comments?
This is to Sarah only.
This is to Sarah only. So. Okay.
I think this is a good deal.
Yeah, I can entertain a motion on this.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 18-1763, resolution by the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Travis County, Texas, on behalf of Tessera on Lake Travis Public Improvement District for the collection of public improvement district assessments.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you for sending that notification out.
Sure.
Appreciate it. All right, at this time, I'm going to skip item number 7 and move on to item number 8, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a vote on adoption of a proposal to set a 2018 tax rate of 65 cents for all of Lago Vista and scheduled public hearings and take necessary action. Do I need to read the rest of it? Do I have to read all of it, Dottie?
Yes.
Okay. Pursuant to the Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 102, notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Lago Vista, Texas, will conduct public hearings to receive citizen comments and views regarding the proposed City of Lago Vista count budget for the fiscal year 2018-2019, commencing October 2018 and ending on September 30th, 2019. If adopted by the Lago Vista City Council, the FY 2018 and 2019 budget will raise more total property taxes than last year's budget by an estimated $792,625,078 or 15.1524%, and of this amount, $357,754 is tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll in January 2017. A copy of the proposed budget is available for viewing between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday at the Lago Vista City Hall, 5803 Thunderbird, and the Lago Vista Public Library at 5803 Thunderbird Suite 40. And may be found at the city's website. Not going to read the rest. Okay. Josh, you have a presentation for us?
So, Mayor, what this does is it establishes that at the current rate, we would approve the 65-cent tax rate. And as you already mentioned in the last item, that would be the same tax rate for 6 consecutive years for the city. No reduction, no increase. But that what it does is it raises the effective amount of money that's collected in the ad valorem side by the amount that you already presented. What staff is recommending is 2 public hearings, the first being September 6th, and then the second on September 13th. The September 13th would be a special called meeting that we would have effectively just for the budget.
So is the second meeting required because of the amounts involved?
The second meeting is required because there is an increase in the last year's collection to this year's collection.
That's just because of the property appraisals.
Yes, sir.
You know, for the new folks on the council, this would be your first time going. This is the maximum rate.
Correct.
Okay, we can't raise it anymore after tonight, that we're locked. Okay, you could lower it, but you can't raise it. So,
Yeah.
we'll get to vote on this officially in September.
On the 13th or the 20th of September?
The 13th, it looks like is what you're requesting, but we can make sure we review that when we talk about future meeting dates.
I think you vote on the 20th.
So Mayor, so the
20th.
yeah, the 13th will be our second public hearing.
And then the 20th
And then
we
we'll
vote?
wait until the 20th for the final vote
Got
as
it.
we have on that calendar.
So this is just basically asking us to approve 2 public hearings?
And to set the max
And
rate.
and set the max rate at
rate.
65 cents?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is no change.
No change?
Yeah, it's just an activity we have to do as a part of the annual budget setting.
Well, the main thing we're doing tonight is scheduling the public hearing.
That and setting the rate. Those are both of the, with no change.
And we need to do that as a motion?
And we need to do that as a motion.
I make a motion to, where's the number?
Set the tax rate for 65 cents.
For 65 cents for the city of Lago Vista and schedule public hearings and take necessary action. The public hearings on September 6th and September 13th, and the rate be set at 65 cents.
It's the proposed tax rate,
The-
the proposed,
The proposed tax rate of
Right.
65 cents.
correct.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Dottie, do I need to address moving 7 now, or can we move through the discussion items?
Yes, you skipped 7
Right.
with the intent to add it to executive session, so I would do the discussion.
Perfect, okay. All right, so with the item number 9, a presentation and discussion on the Scenic City Program.
Mayor, that's going to be Counselor Davila has this one.
Thank you. The program that I'm going to discuss today is hoping to get acceptance and support from the rest of council that we move forward to get certification for scenic cities. Scenic City is a program that was begun in 2010, and I think Councilor Smith has some information about what he learned then, and he may want to jump in and provide more information. But from my vantage point, I went to a seminar that was presented a couple of weeks ago and learned about the mechanics of this program. Most of us, when we think of Scenic City, I think we believe that we're talking about the natural beauty that we see existing here in our city. That's not what this is about. It's not about just natural beauty. It's about the city policing itself, guarding against light pollution, beautifying its roadways by prohibiting billboards and controlling signage, also landscaping its roadways and green spaces and insisting on tree preservation. Well, it turns out that we already have ordinances that cover all those requirements. So this would be just a matter of being able to set aside the $750 fee. It's a 5-year renewable fee. So when you do the math, it's really, we're talking about spending $150 a year for the opportunity to be able to brand ourselves and be able to advertise that we are a scenic city. I don't think that anyone will agree that we have the views that provide the idea that we have a very natural and very beautiful city. But this goes beyond that to be able to institute this program. The benefits of this program is that there will be an expert third party that does an evaluation of our ordinances to make sure that we're complying with all those necessary standards. Then we earn our certification by a scorecard that they provide us, telling us where we are in relation to the program. And it can vary anywhere from just being recognized to the level which is called platinum. At some point in time, if we decide that we want to change our level of recognition, that's a requirement of $300 each time that we want to bump up to the next higher level. And there's, I think, 5 different levels. I wanted to point something out because just for comparative purposes, here are some of the scenic cities that we have around us here in the Lago Vista general area. Bee Cave, Cedar Park, those are 2 cities that are at the platinum level. Gold level, we have Buda, Lakeway, Dripping Springs, Pflugerville, Georgetown, Horseshoe Bay, and Westlake. There is no one at the silver level, which is the 3rd level down. The bronze level, we have Manor and Marble Falls. And then all the recognized cities are well beyond our area here. So that's what this discussion is about, hoping to gain acceptance from the rest of council that we move forward with this certification program and go ahead and apply. The application period is between January 1st and March 31st of 2019. So, we would want to be able to at least have a discussion with our city manager about allocating those resources to do the application.
Based on the seminar that you went to, I had looked at some of this very, very briefly previously, but which level do you think we would qualify for without making any adjustments to the city?
There's no way that I could answer that because, we haven't been down this road before. We have no real idea, where we would be graded because there will be a team of people that will come out and do the evaluation. They'll look at our roadways, they'll look for billboards and minimal signage and all those kinds of things. I mean, if you asked me to take a guess, I would say that we'd probably start off at the bronze level, but hopefully it'd be higher than that.
So I know that there are things like having scenic overviews, which we didn't think we had, but we actually do over by the sports complex. Mm-hmm. Or there, public parks and other items are pieces of that puzzle.
Yeah.
So I think and based on what you said, each time we reapply, there's additional cost incurred.
Right.
So you want to go for the best you can, right?
And hopefully the judgment that's made by this panel that does the evaluating would rate us at a high level. But I think there's a lot of interest on the part of the chamber to be able to market us as a scenic city, and I think it'll help us. It'll help us in economic development, and those are some of the pieces to this puzzle that I think we need to think through.
Is the only opportunity to change your level at the 5-year renewal?
No, I believe you can do that annually.
Okay. And then the other question I had is, if we apply, excuse me, they're going to do an evaluation. They'll tell us what level we're at if we qualify. But I'm assuming that maybe we'll also get some information about what types of changes we might need to make to jump to additional levels.
That's exactly right. That will be part of the process. They'll give us guidelines on what we need to do to get to the next level or the next couple of levels, whatever we request, I believe.
Good.
So that's my presentation. I hope that this is the beginning of a good conversation to move in that direction. I think I spoke to Elaine Hughes at the chamber earlier in the week, and she's very excited about the idea of being able to get this recognition. Yeah.
So what are the next steps? Are you going to have it on the next agenda for potential vote, or are there other mechanics that have to happen before we would do that?
I think for our purposes, we would have, we'd have to have a vote to allocate the money to be able to move forward in that direction. So, and I don't know if this is done by ordinance or resolution to do that, but I think those are the steps that we need to take to move that item forward.
I just asked Josh this, that we could vote and allocate dollars at this time?
Mayor, you could vote if the council wanted to vote now and say we can move forward. We have administrative dollars that we could go ahead and start the process with without even having a budget amendment. If you wanted to do something specific for the budget amendment, we could do that either in this meeting or in our next meeting. But if council gives support administratively, we have dollars in the administrative budget to go ahead and cover that.
And the budget, the amount again was what?
$749.
Less than $1,000 bucks.
But this item was on our agenda for a
Yeah,
discussion.
it's not an action item.
Yeah.
But we can take action if we want to.
But you could, what I would say is if you give support towards it based on the application and going through the process, administratively, the staff could go ahead and say, we want to do this.
So not take an official vote, but show an expression of
If you
interest.
show expression of interest and the council doesn't have an issue with it, we as staff could move forward with the process as it is now. That's my point is,
Okay.
you're not going to take that official vote
I'll
based
express-
on our action.
I'll express some interest.
I express interest, positive interest.
And
You know,
essentially, the manager's saying, if there's no objection, I have administrative dollars and I can move forward. And then if anybody objected, then he'd be halted.
Does anyone on council object to
Nope,
us pursuing this as a city?
nope.
Mayor, we just want to note to Councilor Davila, though, that I'm giving now, there may be a time that I need a favor in the future. I just want that to be in the minutes, that it's a give and take. You know, 750 here, 750 there. Just,
I'd like to add something to that, though. This has been on the comprehensive master
Yeah,
plan
yes.
for some years, and if I remember correctly, in reading the literature, this was supposed to be an action that was to be taken year one, which I think was last year.
And it's in the Parks and Recs at master plan as well.
So,
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
The other thing I would say as well, Josh, is to consider looking, as you do your 3-year budgeting program, let's think about adding the requisite dollars to support movement on this into the Parks and Recs budget moving forward. Because I think
But it's not necessarily a Parks and Recs
well,
thing.
the level one is, but a lot of the qualifiers for what level you get, as I remember, and Ron and Arch can tell me, things like having the public parks and having the scenic overviews, and the ordinance is sort of like the ticket to the show, and then you've got to be beautiful.
Mayor, I'll make sure, when we
Yeah.
have our next discussion at the next meeting on the budget, I'll make sure that we put this allocation in there just so that if there's something next year,
Perfect.
we've got a placeholder that says we may have to have funds for the following year.
Oh, I do, Arch, you mentioned that the application period is like January through March of next year. Do you know when they report back to the cities that applied? How soon you'll know?
I do not know that.
About July.
That was-
July? So it's still in time for the budget discussions? That was the main reason I was asking. Yeah,
Doesn't seem to be so much money that it would break the budget.
oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I
If we
don't,
annualize it, we're talking about
I'd like to say,
$150 a year.
I don't look at it so much from a certification standpoint. I look at it more as an independent third party is grading our ordinances to a standard, and we'll get like a numerical grade, and then they'll put them in one of these 5 categories. That will probably become the blueprint for how we might want to tackle ordinance revision in the future, with the focus being scenic cities. So certification is nice, but I don't think that's what we ought to be focused on. And I think it's going to tell us what part of our ordinances are good, what part of our ordinances need beefing up, and then that kind of gives us a way to schedule ordinance upgrades going forward. That's the way I would approach it. It was in the master plan. I was the one that helped get it there. This program, I think, has been going on before 2010. That's just when I got involved with it. But this is kind of like something I've been working on for 8 years and haven't made it yet. So I think it's going to help us with priority of the future more so. I don't know that they don't care about pictures.
Okay.
I don't know that they're going to send anybody out here. What they're going to do is have a battery of questions, like how do you handle your landscape? And you put in a URL link that addresses that, and you send it off to them. And as they go through and read them, they're clicking on the links, reading your ordinances. And they grade you on how well that ordinance answers that question. And I think it's really more just an ordinance review more than anything. It's not, nobody's going to take pictures. They're not going to even accept pictures because they know everybody's going to go out and take the best picture they can and turn it in.
Yeah.
So they don't even want to deal with that issue. And so the other thing you need to know is they're not really checking on enforcement of the ordinances. So just do you have the enabling ordinances in place? Not that you're following them, not that you're enforcing them, just that you have everything in place to enforce. And that's really what they're grading on. I think it's a small price to pay to get an independent third party to see where we might go with our ordinances. I know Roy, and this is kind of a touchy thing with me because I really don't want to get into the city management business. That's really Josh and Roy's business to do it, but it may provide some guidance for priority, which is where I think we need to be operating at and not so much the actual details.
So this would be our first step, and that's the way I look at it. And I think that's a positive step to take. And I think anyone listening out there is probably in agreement that this is something that we need to do. It's not something that's prohibited financially, prohibitable, so.
Back when we did the master plan, a lot of the things that fell out of that study was we had a lot of big things we wanted to go do, and you can't do them in year one or even in year two.
Right.
So it was like year three and greater is where they were out. So the question then became is, well, what do we do between now and year three? Well, one of the things is go figure out your plans. What are you going to do? And get that all detailed out so when you get to year three, you have something to move out on. So looks like it's finally starting to get a little traction here. To be honest with you, I don't know how long, I took a shot at it myself. I actually took a 2010 application back in 2010, and I went through our Franklin system, which is where our ordinances are housed at. And I went through there and just tried to make an association just to see how long it would take. Now, I'm not a development services director, but I didn't find it that oppressive, something that couldn't be done, maybe in a week or two, assuming that that's all you did. You could probably just sit down and focus it and knock it out. But we've got until, the end of March to get this thing submitted. So it's not like it's going to happen tomorrow or even in September or even October.
Well, right, the beginning of this certification program begins January 1, so we have.
So there's some runway in front of us
Yes.
on this stuff. And so I guess, Josh, that, y'all can, this is something that you can kind of put in whenever you don't have anything important to do.
When you're twiddling your thumbs.
Right now.
This is.
I can be working on it right this second
Right.
and got on top of it.
Excellent. So feel confident that you've got direction.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to a discussion regarding the investigative body and process and procedures. Investigative body and process and procedures? That doesn't sound like the right English.
That is all of the actions that we're reviewing now,
Okay.
Mayor. This item came up as we were looking in the charter. Councilor Sullivan, in reading a section of the charter, had said, we know we have this section, we know that we need a policy. The question was asked, do we have that policy? The response was, no, we do not. Then the response to that was, we should probably get one. So what we did is we included a copy of the Bee Cave ordinance, which just gives us a guideline for something similar to what our council could adopt and use that as a policy. The thought being that this would be something similar where either council meets as a whole to review and picks out, or as we've done on other items, a subcommittee puts together how we want to act. The end game is we just need to make sure that we develop this policy so that when something happens, we don't have to scramble at that time. And this is the first actual discussion, which is why we have it on discussion item, without putting together any type of Lago ordinance for you to review.
Would you, Josh, what would be your preference? Would you rather have staff take a crack at it and then bring it back before us? Do you want us to would you rather have a subcommittee? What would you prefer?
Well, Mayor, I think we could put together, I think staff could use the Bee Cave. We've read through it. Sandra and I have read through it. There's a couple others that Sandra pulled up as well. I think we could read through it and give the council an actual document to review at the next meeting and let you look at it. And then if our ordinance, our sample, isn't good, then we still have time to go ahead and say, hey, let's do a subcommittee. But I think the fastest, easiest way, the majority of these ordinances are all the same. It'd be the same if we went to Dottie and said, Dottie, we need to have one of these. She's going to do the exact same thing and find someone else that's created it, and then we'll just go through and make the changes that fit Lago better. So
I would research the law and come up with a ordinance that was legally correct.
Dottie would
and
do
not just
law
copy.
and then go look at Bee Cave's ordinance and say, maybe they did this well, maybe they didn't. But yeah, so I would think we can put together a good sample draft for council to review.
Perfect.
I just have a question. I'm just wondering if anybody else is at the same point, but personally, if there is something that needs to be investigated, to me, that's something that needs to be handled by our police department, by our legal department. It needs to be taken before a judge. As a volunteer in this position and elected by the people, I understand we have an obligation, but honestly, I don't want to be a judge and jury on something. This is so far beyond what the council should really be involved in. My thought is more that, honestly, it's something that shouldn't even be in our charter. But I would agree that we need to go through Dottie to make sure that we get a legal structure to anything that we set up. But I can tell you that implementing this would be something that I would be extremely, extremely uncomfortable with.
Charter Review didn't pick up on this at all, so.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, and I understand your feeling about it, but the charter
The charter says
assigns
it.
us that
I
responsibility,
understand.
and so it seems important for us to be prepared. I don't anticipate anything coming along, but if something does, you want to know how you're going to act.
Mayor, what happens is, and I just deleted the whole thing, so I can't read it to you, but what happens is, it's not just I wouldn't say it's the legal world of going in front of a judge. Investigative could be someone brings to a member of council something that's not right. And so in theory, those actions would come to the city manager. But let's think in the worst case scenario that the city manager and the finance director are involved in something that is not legal. That's where your investigative body comes in. So you would look at it and determine, does it need to go to a next level? And so you do have that responsibility. I think that's part of what Councilor Sutherland mentioned on another item before. You have that responsibility to make sure that the practice of this city is going as is, not just through the audit, but through day-to-day complaints. There could be other items, which that Bee Cave lays it out, that go around the city manager function and still goes back to a council.
So think Senate hearing.
It really is.
When you have a Senate hearing, they take no action, right? Then if the Senate then can pass it on to a grand jury or, make sense?
Yeah, so it's investigative to get you to a point where you would take an additional action, not to where you would hear guilty, not guilty, but so you have you have a doubt, and that doubt needs to be investigated through
The proper channel.
right, in the legal system. So what that policy it will do, and it really goes back to the essence of what the policy is for, it tells you which items you're going to investigate and how you're going to handle that. So it is needed. Just where you're looking at, hopefully we never get to that point, but it's definitely a document that we need to have in place.
But I would guess that it was in our charter because the framers of our charter found it in other charters. Just my guess.
It's a frequently found
Is
in the
it?
Home Rule Charter.
Yeah.
It goes back, it has a long history.
Yeah.
There's some questions about the council's ability to issue subpoenas to persons outside, the staff. So when this came up, I called Josh and I said, am I supposed to have something on this? And he said, let's just have the discussion and we'll see what our direction is. So there is going to be some legal research into what you can do legally, and we'll review and bring back something.
So that will be at our next meeting?
I don't know if we're going to be able to bring this back at the next meeting. I do think because it is an investigative power, you don't want to just throw something together, look at people's ordinances and say, you know, Bee Caves did that, that looks good, let's just do that. I think if you're gonna investigate and have subpoena powers, you need to know you're on firm legal standing.
Okay.
And I would also think that this is, clearly there's a lot more discussion that the council wants to have when we have more information. So it's probably needs to go on a first meeting, right? Not a third week.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and how we've been doing it, Mayor, is even though the format is discuss it the first meeting of the month and then approve it the second, as long as we get it to a discussion and then the second meeting before approval, some of these actions. But we'll make sure that we get plenty of legal review. So I think that Councilor Weatherly's pointing it out exactly. If you're going to have the power, you need to understand what it is and what the responsibility is. So we'll follow through, we'll work on it and work with Dottie.
Okay.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to item number 11, a discussion and consider amending Article 9.800 Building Committee of Chapter 9 Personnel of the Lago Vista City Code to replace the Building Committee with a Building and Standards Commission.
Mayor, this discussion came up during the charter review initially, and how it was derived is what we're recommending now for votes by our citizens is a change to our Planning and Zoning Commission. The changes to our Planning and Zoning Commission will then allow us to look at a building committee or, as proposed, a Building and Standards Commission to see what responsibilities they could have. Councilor Davila brought this back to the council, so we wanted to be able to discuss this and some of these findings as we're moving forward. In an email this week, Dottie had sent to the council some of the findings, some facts, and information on the Building and Standards Commission.
Mm-hmm. And we could do this by a resolution or ordinance, or how do we have to do this?
Yes, sir. So what the good news is as we talked with Aaron before, we don't have to include this into the charter.
Correct.
So as we said, we felt confident if we made the previous change, then we'd be able to handle this through an action by council to then establish and provide that authority to the Building and Standards Commission. And I think that goes back to what?
Through a resolution? Or
through resolutions or an ordinance.
Ordinance, you would do it by ordinance.
By ordinance?
So in the memo, Chapter 54 establishes the city's ability to establish the Building and Standards Commission. They have powers to look at dilapidated structures, nuisances, and have hearings and make a decision to make the property owner either remove the structure or clean up the property. You can go to an expedited hearing in state court if it's truly a bad situation. And there's another section in 214 in the local government code that allows you to establish minimum standards for your buildings so that all property owners are held to a standard. What you have now is your building code establishes a building committee to deal with the issues from the building code. So, and it doesn't pick up a lot of what you can do under state law. So that's the sample ordinance I provided to you. So if you wanted staff to go in this direction, we would replace the building committee with the Building and Standards Commission that's authorized by state law and fix the parts of your ordinance that refer to the building committee. Because the Building and Standards Committee does fire, it does more than just the building regulations.
They've got extensive powers, and they're the final judge with regard to those items. So this is not a trivial thing to do.
Right, they have quasi judicial powers. They're considered like a court, so.
Regulatory authority.
Correct.
So with this new Building Standards Commission, that is a different structure than what we have in place today, which is 7 standing members. If I read the memo right, it looked like there's a restructure. So does that mean if we move forward that basically you got to dissolve and then stand up new and then staff it with volunteers?
You can repeal and replace. You can look at your current building committee. The state law recommends that when you do establish this committee that you have people on it with certain expertise. So you'd look at your current members to see if they kind of fit in those slots. And you could, recommend that that person that's currently serving be appointed to the new Building Standards Commission in the transition, so that you wouldn't lose the expertise you have currently.
My question would be, are we going to be held to 5 regular members and 4 alternates?
That was just a suggestion.
Oh, a suggestion.
I just put in the statute, you can have up to 8 alternates. So that in working this out, we have to get direction from council on which way you want to go. The reason that they have the 5 members is kind of similar to a board of adjustment.
Right.
And the alternates is so that you'll have enough people in case you don't have those 5 members that can act on something, because typically they're hearing issues that are that need immediate attention.
And if I understood that correctly, the idea is to have at least 4 people there to make these judgments. Well, currently we have a committee, a building committee of 7 regular members. So if they all get converted to commissioners, a quorum is 4 anyways to make any decisions. So would not be enough to satisfy the requirement of the state law?
Let me look into the state law to see if
Okay.
we can have a 7-member Building and Standards Commission. What I've put together is typically what the cities do, because most cities know they can at least get 5 people there.
Right.
And that's why the statute allows so many alternates.
Right.
But if you know consistently you can get your 7 members to serve, and then you still have alternates, we can structure it that way if the state law allows it.
Part of the problem with, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because both the Board of Adjustment and the Building Committee are, they're entities that I'm a liaison to, just right now, I can say without a doubt that both of these 2 entities, the most that I've ever seen was 1 person not attend one of the meetings. So they're, from the standpoint of being able to attend meetings, I don't see any real problem with the 7 members that we have currently that are serving on the building committee.
And the comment I was going to make is the problem with alternates, you show up not knowing if you're going to be needed or not, and they can be demoralizing. And I think that's part of the reason why we went to try to standardize, which is 7 regular members across all of our boards and committees, just so people could be more vested in their position.
I've been an alternate, it's not fun.
No, it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
show up, you listen, you hear everything, and you don't. And
Get
You
the
don't
vote.
participate in the vote, yeah.
Right,
You were demoralized.
yes.
And we want to avoid that.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd have a question for Councilman Davila. In going through the ordinance that Dottie has put together, it would give this commission tremendous powers. Powers of enforcement and powers of judicial ability that we definitely don't have with this committee at present. Is this where you envisioned this going to? Is this what you had planned on?
This is exactly what I had planned on, because currently we have issues where the building official is denying someone. Those kinds of things currently go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and if there's a denial there, then it goes to the Board of Adjustment, and then the next step after that is going to courts. This gives the Building and Standards Commission the same powers that the Planning and Zoning and the Board of Adjustment together have right now. So my idea here was to streamline this process so that all building codes which are under Chapter 3 of our ordinances would go to them. Any appeal made to a decision made by the building official would go to the Building and Standards Commission, much like anything that he makes a judgment on that has to do with zoning, which is Chapter 14, that will continue to go to Planning and Zoning. And then if there's a denial there, then it goes to the Board of Adjustment. But this kind of gives the Building and Standards Commission the same powers of those 2 combined, and takes away the necessity for the Planning and Zoning Commission to listen to denials that have to do with Chapter 3, which is the building code. So it's more of a streamlined thing.
But I'll piggyback on Councilman Weatherly. The powers are extensive to the point that Dottie mentioned, telling someone they got to tear down a house. And so I'm going to look at it very strictly before I can vote with good conscience in giving someone that kind of authority, because they could vote to do that, and they're all appointed, none of them are elected, and it wouldn't have to come through us in order for that to take place. Is that correct?
I believe that the powers, and this is something that Dottie may be able to shed more light on, but I don't see that their powers would be any different than what we have currently given to the commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Adjustment. The same powers. It just falls in one area.
So
But the Planning and Zoning Committee, they can recommend something, but it still has to come to us as council.
Well, no, like the 22 foot, or the height exceptions. They can do those and those don't come to us. They do have final word on some things.
Right.
And again, I believe, now, again, Dottie can correct me on this. I think if they make a decision, they're going to base the decision, and I don't know that we don't have to still give the final.
No, this would be like a quasi-judicial committee. Currently, you have in your building code the regulations for substandard structures and goes to the building committee. I didn't look at the current building committee's functions, and I don't know. We haven't gotten any cases that have gone through this building committee process, so I'm not real familiar with it. But the Board of Building Standards and the authority under state law allows the process to go to the Building Standards Commission and them to issue an order. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to tell the property owner to tear the house down, but they may say, if you want to repair, and establish a reasonable schedule of repair. And so you see that in the back of the ordinance. It's not necessarily they're going to order a tear down of everything. It has to be something where the roof had been blown off, rained into. I've seen it where vagrants have gotten into the house, lived in the house, started setting fires. These are cases that I've had in previous city that I've taken through the process. That's the kind of structure that you want to take to the Board of Building Standards. They would still have a right to appeal that to state court if they didn't agree with the decision of the Board of Building Standards. And I had that very same case go to a judge where the judge said, well, it doesn't look that bad to me. And if he wants to repair it, I'm going to let him repair it.
Yeah.
My question would be,
over a year's period of time, the property owner eventually repaired it. But from the city's standpoint, they didn't want vagrants living in there when it was cold, starting fires, and could catch, the rest of the property on fire. I don't know if we have those kind of cases here, but that's an example of what you would take to the Building Standards Commission and ask for a tear down.
but, excuse me, Councilor, my question is this. Is there any more judicial ability held by the Building and Standards Commission versus the Board of Adjustment? Both of them still have final decision authority. Is that
Correct, and they both still go to state court
Exactly.
with an appeals process.
So this is just really, to me, it's just really funneling everything that has to do with the building codes to that commission.
Right.
Much like zoning goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission and denial there then goes to the Board of Adjustment. I just don't see that there's any real difference there.
Okay, I just want to ask one kind of clarifying question.
And can I just say something?
Sure.
And the members have the expertise to say to that property owner, hey, your electrical, that could catch on fire, and you could, you're the neighboring property. So it's a health safety committee, and it's given more powers than just the normal building committee under your building code.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So in the ordinance that we received, in section B, it talks about the commission's powers include the power 2, and there are 15 sub-items. All 15 of those are current powers of the Board of Adjustment?
So that's on page 3 under B.
Yes.
So when it says under chapter, that comes from state law. That was number 1. Then 214, that's your minimum standards, that comes from state law. And then you can set a civil penalty. Say it went to the Building Standards Commission, property owner said, I don't want to tear it down, I want to repair it. But then he let it continue to be a nuisance. You have the ability to
And all
set
that's
that
fine.
penalty.
You don't need to go
Okay.
through each and every one of them. All I'm trying to find out is, all 15 that are listed here, they are currently powers of the Board of Adjustments, is what I think I heard you say.
No. The Board of Adjustment has separate powers to hear and decide appeals from administrative officials, to decide variances.
So if we were to create this Board of Standards and Adjust, whatever, Building and Standards, they would have new powers that don't currently exist in the Board of Adjustments, Building Committee, Planning and Zoning. Is that correct?
Correct, because
Okay.
theirs comes from 2 sections in state law.
Okay. So it does sound as if new powers will be granted to this commission if it were created. And it might be nice to understand
What those are.
Yeah.
what are the new ones that are being provided if we were to create this commission?
Okay.
I also would prefer too that we have this in a published packet before, that we have another discussion after
Right.
the public has had an opportunity to review it.
Right.
So when I do the memo, you don't want me to make it confidential? You just want me to do a analysis of,
I doesn't matter, but I don't want to vote on it and a council action item until the public had had an opportunity to review it.
okay,
And just to answer your question a little bit more specifically, if we're talking about a legal issue around executive session items, absolutely keep it. But
this would be just a
Yeah,
report from the attorney.
we're
saying-
talking about this in open public session.
Right.
Your opinion should be able to be read by anybody in my
Right, I
public,
always
my
ask
opinion.
before I just stick it in there.
Before we leave the topic, on those skills, electrical or plumbing or whatever is involved, do we have to redo our applications for that board to make sure that they address those certifications, skills, whatever's required to
Experience,
perform that role?
Mayor, I would recommend that we do, and I know that we've talked about the existing members, but as Dottie's labeled out, we want the people that have those specific experiences, and we may actually designate a seat on the Building and Standards Commission for a plumber, for an electrician. So if we do that, then I think we should.
I think
Look back at the whole
that should be
process.
clearly spelled out, I think, when it comes back to us, because we may have to go back, well, Counselor Devlin may have to come back and say, well, these people fit these roles and these people don't. Maybe those are your alternates. I don't know, but I'm trying to figure out, how do you implement it once we know it, and do we have the right people in the right spots?
Well, and there would need to be a set of standards by which to evaluate that too, right? I mean, I get your point that you suggest a plumber, but who's going to do the research to make sure that they're in good standing with their licensing? And I mean, if we're going to give them, imbibe them with new powers of decisions, then we certainly are going to have a checks and balances system there for those skills.
And I can bring back in the memo a side-by-side. Here's your building committee, your current ordinance, what they're doing, and then the Board of Building Standards, and so you can compare and see which one would better suit your city.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the whole purpose for doing this is to separate the planning and zoning chapter 14 issues away from them when they're having to deal with chapter 3 or the building codes, giving that to the people that know something about building. I think even the people on P&Z have said these are some of these decisions that they're making, they don't have any real idea about, and their idea is that it should go to building because
Right.
they're building code issues. And that's the essence of why I think this is a thing that we need to do, to separate.
Well, I agree,
Chapter
but,
three.
the building committee wasn't really functioning before. So now that we have a building committee, we can separate out chapter 3 from chapter 14. That's why we're trying to do that index, so we can figure out which ordinance needs to have that particular
Exactly.
item in it. So
Exactly.
that's what we're trying to do.
So we can streamline all those ordinances
Yeah.
if we have those two
Separate.
entities that are handling separate
Right.
parts of our ordinances.
I don't think anybody is disagreeing with the intent. I think that we want to make sure that we're not giving results that are not within the intent, if that makes sense. We just want to be careful about that.
Yeah, I understand that, and I would agree with that, but I think that we're making a bigger issue of this than I see as necessary. Because after all, we still have the Board of Adjustment that has the same kinds of authority as this new commission would have. Now, there may be more, I don't really know what the difference is. I don't know that if there's a difference that it's that big of a difference, and it isn't until we get some clarity on that we can really make a decision there.
But you agree it's a good thing to try and discover what those,
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's a difference, then we need to know what the differences are.
Absolutely.
And then evaluate, how prohibitive are those differences from creating this commission.
Right, great. I feel like there's clear direction. You have clear direction?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate you correcting that one.
I had so much direction, I was going all over the place.
Did you have anything to address with us on the city manager's report?
I do have, Mayor, I just have the one item. We delivered the numbers on there. We will email out the individual breakdown. When we did the second quarter report, we sent this out, and then we followed up with additional information. I didn't include the additional requested information, and that's completely because I forgot to add that. But I will send that out. Councilor Smith had sent me an email on something else, and it made me think about putting the other specifics, the line items. I'll send that out via email. What it does show, though, is the revenue expense report and then the profit loss difference compared to the last or total of 4 years. And so you'll see those trend lines of what's happening with the course and where we're at in terms of the full year. What you'll see is the third quarter for the Lago Vista Golf Course effectively had expenditures $72,000 greater than the revenues, which was approximately half of second quarter, and then maybe 33% of less than that of the first quarter. So we do expect, as we've said all year long, that the fourth quarter will be a solid year or a solid quarter for the course. With the improvements that we've seen at the course, that's a positive thing. But the whole goal ultimately should be that all the numbers that you see on these charts need to get above that line. That's the whole goal. And I just want to make sure we're always clear with that anytime there's a line, it's good to have numbers above the line. And that's our end game. We're not projecting that for the fourth quarter, but that's what we would like to see.
Those are quarterly numbers, those aren't cumulative numbers.
Yes, sir. Yeah, those are quarterly numbers. So if we were looking at total revenue or total loss up to here, then we would say currently I think we're at $380-some thousand of basically a fund balance appropriation to balance out the golf course budget at this point. For the year, the allocation was $555. If you look at this projection, that could put us in between $450,000 to $500,000 to end the year under the budget, but still, we've got to get it to a place where we know that we're comfortable with.
If we can continue at this trajectory, one would suppose that we'd have to see fourth quarter losses somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000.
No.
Well, compared to, yes, if you look
That's
at
the
these,
trajectory.
if the trajectory line is correct, that'd be incredible. We would love to see it.
Well, and 14, 15, and 15, 16 show that it's possible.
It does work in those years. That 16, 17 shows wheels fell off, but
Correct.
it's definitely not any of those other 3 years. It's a year in itself, so you're right. If we can keep going in that direction, then we're getting close to the line we want it to be at.
Everybody likes lines that are moving northeast.
Yeah.
Correct. That's the only thing I had on the report, and I can answer any questions on this. But I will send that out. I do have those numbers that Chris sent to me. I can send that out. I'll actually either send it out after the meeting or tomorrow.
Is there a 3 paycheck month in the fourth quarter? Because that's part of what makes big losses happen in months. There is one in the fourth quarter? Okay, yeah, okay.
So now we just went from 20 to 30 to 30 to 50. So Counselor Sullivan just killed the whole idea. Just want to make sure we're clear on that.
It happens every quarter.
We're not clear. It
think
does happen every quarter.
Took it right out.
Yeah, it happens
Yeah,
every
twice a
quarter.
year.
It happens twice a year.
Oh, okay.
Twice a year.
Two
it
quarters, just,
Okay.
not all four, just two, Ron.
Okay.
Why are you
Excellent.
looking at me like that?
Don't be giving them any excuses. Great, so let's take item number 13 and consider and schedule for future council meetings.
Man, you'll see those items updated in your report from the last meeting where we've lined them out. Sandra actually put on here the items for August 16th now, which is fantastic. And then the items that need to appear in September, and then the long-range plans. So you'll see those items. And we'll keep doing this as council's requested to move these items onto this list.
And it sounds like we have, you have enough action for 9 so that we don't need to move that one forward. But the number 10 and 11 need to be scheduled out.
I would say so.
If I captured that correctly, don't think any other items appeared already. Do any of the council members have items they'd like to have added to the schedule?
I don't want to, excuse me, add one, but in that September, the discussion of rules and regs and airport action plan, I think it's really through the fence agreement that we're most likely to bring back before us.
First.
So I would put that there, and we could potentially see some changes to rules and regs and the airport action plan, but the through the fence, I think, is the most likely item we see come back.
Are there more items in preparation for the November election that need to come forward? Do we have more actions?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think we're set
Okay.
for that item. And we are open right now, so filing is open.
Procedure at the next meeting.
And that planning and zoning commission regarding
Some more
building
discussion.
heights, that might be pushed back further to
Okay.
September.
Mayor, I'd like to add another item for discussion at the next meeting, and that would be a continuation of the discussion on rules of procedure.
Got it.
And I noticed on last week's status reports that the water and sewer taps went up to 154. I don't know if things have changed or not, but it seemed like we're trending in the wrong direction. So I don't know if there's any new information. I'm just looking at from 7/26 in July that, we went up to 154, which is a kind of a high water mark on the water and sewer taps. So I don't know. Is there anything new to report there? Or can we talk about it at a future council
Yeah,
meeting?
we can add that on that list and bring it out.
Josh, I know that you had conversations with Cap Metro for a variety of things that they were going to try and take care of. Was there a timeline for them to work on those items, and is there a specific time in the future it'd be appropriate to not necessarily have them come back, but maybe have an update on what it is that they're doing or going to do?
Mayor, I actually meet with them, with their finance people on Monday. So I'll have an update after that meeting. That'll include their finance director for Cap Metro, their operations manager, and the gentleman that gave us the report.
Sam Sargent.
Thank you, Sam. We'll all have that meeting Monday morning, 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So after that meeting, I'll have something that I'll send by email, and then we'll probably have it as a manager's report so we can do that at the next meeting.
Perfect.
Maybe they ought to come out here and look at their signs.
They have pictures of all their signs.
I know.
And it's on the list, so we shall see if their list taking equals action.
Any other items? Dick, anything from you?
Just on-
Okay, great. So then I'm going to return to action item number 7, and if it's amenable to the rest of council, I'd like to move that into executive session.
That's fine.
Okay. So the council will convene into an executive session pursuant to section 551-071, advice of counsel, 551-072, real property, 551-074, personnel, section 551- I said dash dot 087, Economic Development, Texas Government Code Section 1.05, Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct regarding pending or threatening litigation to cause number D1GN-16-002483 Villa Montechino LP versus the City of Lago Vista, Travis County, 200th District Court. B, consultation with legal counsel concerning possible real estate acquisition, management, or divestitures and attendant matters thereto. C, consultation with legal counsel concerning airport property. D, consultation with legal counsel regarding contractual claims or possible claims or charges, contractual modifications, or questions related hereto. E, consultation with legal counsel concerning the participation of the City of Lago Vista in the CAP Metro Transportation Authority. F, consultation with City Council and deliberate economic development incentives for projects located within the City of Lago Vista, as well as action item number 7, discussion and action regarding resolution number 18-1764, a resolution by the City Council of City of Lago Vista, Texas, appointing an individual to fill an unexpired vacant term as a member serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission. 14B, consultation with legal counsel concerning, oh, no, got that one. I forgot those already. And we will adjourn to our executive session at 8:16. Telling you.
When you do this, you just don't have to go home and do any reading.
I've
already done enough reading for.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna start poking Ed to see if I can get him to move as fast as we do.
Yeah.